Hello, everyone. This is Jesse with the Jaunty Mantis, and tonight I wanted to try something a little bit different from what we regularly do. Uh, I was kind of inspired by the conversation we had with Lauren the Beast a while ago, and I think most of you know because I mentioned a lot on the show. I listen to a lot of other podcasts, and one of the ones I've been listening to a lot is Reading D&D Aloud by Ben Riggs, who the self-styled D&D historian. And I thought, well, this is actually pretty interesting. I've read a couple books by guests of his about the history of D&D, and I thought, we don't really have like an oral history. So, with the caveat that I am not a historian or trained as a historian, I wanted to give it a shot and see if it comes up. And so I'll just say this at the beginning of the episode. If you keep listening and you like what you hear and you're interested in possibly coming on and doing an interview like this, email us at jauntymantis@gmail.com. That is JAUNTYMANTIS@gmail.com, and let me know, and we will reach out to you and see if we can get you on the show. With that in mind, our first guest is a regular on the pod these days. And could you state your name for the recording?
Chris Hall.
Well, Chris, can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up?
Oh, San Jose, California, and then Eugene, Oregon. And I've been in Oklahoma City since like 2004. Yeah.
Okay.
High school in Eugene. So that kind of in my brain feels like the hometown when people ask.
So you were a kid in San Jose? I never knew that.
Yep. Many of my younger formative years when I first got into role playing games.
Is that so when you were in San Jose, was that when you first became aware of this like imaginative or role-playing games?
Yep. I think the first exposure of anything in the genre was the Hero Skateboard game at the friend's house.
Okay.
Which I think probably holds true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But then going to like craft stores with my mom and seeing that they had a section with role playing game books, just being like, what is this?
I wonder if that was a California thing because they did not have it at craft stores, which I spent a
Yeah.
lot of time in with my mom in Indiana, where I'm from. Did you have any other interests or hobbies when you were a kid, like around the time that you discovered RPGs or?
Oh man, I would have been like middle school, probably mid to late. And it was definitely after I'd read The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. My first RPG was the Marvel superheroes game. So I was familiar with all those characters. So I believe it was probably during the run of the original X-Men Saturday morning cartoon.
Okay. Cool. That's some pretty great inspiration. Did you take a lot of ideas from X-Men for those games you were playing or characters?
Oh man, it was mostly just me running my little brother through the most bare bones scenes and
Okay.
fights. In fact, we did a lot of danger room things where we just played different characters and fought different guys.
That was the fast rip system, right?
I believe that's what it's called. It's got all
With
the
the
cool
chart
charts
on
on
the
the back
table.
page. Yeah, your strength
Yeah.
is described with a cool adjective.
I made a suspicious amount of characters that had the claw power when I got my hands on that game. Not that I was cribbing from anything in the X-Men to grow claws out of your hand.
Snicked.
Mm-hmm. Best at what he does. Uh, and then this is kind of a broad question. So like if you need a second to think about it, were there any particular influences, family, community, culture that shaped how you thought about storytelling?
Early on, I mean, we were a very non-denominational Christian family. And so I wasn't allowed to watch like He-Man or Smurfs, or of course play Dungeons and Dragons, but read the Narnia books, read Tolkien, read C.S. Lewis's Space trilogy, which is actually totally insane. And I'd love to revisit it as an adult, actually, to see just how weird it is
I
by
didn't
today's standards.
realize that he had written a space trilogy.
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
also Christian allegory?
Oh, of course. Yeah,
Okay.
very much so. But also Merlin's in it, and that's rad.
That is pretty rad. um,
But yeah, those kind of themes like crept into even some of my like play with friends, like, do you remember the Battle Beast toys? I remember one cool line. Oh, you thought he was killed in battle, but no, 3 days later, he rises to join the fight.
Were Battle Beasts the ones that you could put your thumb over the little icon and it would reveal which faction they were, and it was kind of rock, paper, scissors?
Yes,
God, I love those things.
very cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of those for me probably also cribbed like ideas for early characters I made. And speaking of which, do you remember your first experience as a player in a role-playing game?
Um, there were a couple aborted D&D sessions I played in high school. This was after I had already been running it for my brother and probably for classmates in high school. Not D&D, but there was an early Lord of the Rings game, and then I got into Middle Earth role play and then Rollmaster. But in that time, on our extended lunch periods, we get like once a week. Someone ran us through. See, one was set in Kryn. I believe I played a Minotaur, and the other was probably Ravenloft. And it was only one session for each. And it was mostly for, I remember, waiting around for the wizard to take a very long turn and then for me to miss with a melee attack.
Okay. Who were you with? Do you remember?
Oh, high school buddies. Those years feel like prison in my mind,
Okay.
not to devalue the terrible experience that most people have in prison, but like, yes, those were my friends, but we were kind of trapped in there with little choice. So it was just the other weirdos that were into whatever the cool kids would call Satan worship,
Okay.
as a residual of the satanic panic. So playing magic and various RPGs with them.
Do you remember how it felt to be a player for the first time?
Boredom, sheer boredom.
S- yeah. Okay.
I
So
have
what
pretty
drew
severe
you in then?
ADHD. Oh,
So it,
running it 100% being the person uh, imagining and communicating the world to the players, and then
okay.
my all the gears have to spin to maintain that fiction in my head and to communicate it to people. So it's some of my least favorite traits become pretty useful in those situations.
Okay. Cool. So you would probably rather talk about the first game you or a game you ran early on rather than your first character you played.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, other than one was a Minotaur that I don't remember doing anything cool. And the other was perhaps a ranger who cut off my other board friend's head before killing himself with his own blade. Those are the standout memories from my first two experiences as a player.
And yet still today, years later.
But
Uh
also, I'm not often a player. So
true, true. Do you after the little Danger Room Marvel RPG games, do you remember the first game that you might have run that had maybe something more of a story involved?
so that would have been probably Middle Earth roleplay. The Ice also had that Lord of the Rings game, but it was like an even more scaled down version of their rules. And all it had was like basically the Shire to Bree on a one off adventure. And so I tried running that and just found the lack of rules it provided for the situations that my high school friends got into to be completely inadequate. So yeah, I started running Middle Earth roleplay then and had rules to cover more situations and more options for my friends to come up with weird characters. And then that wasn't enough rules. So of course, the first segue into Roll Master.
Okay. And was that your dominant game through that phase of your RPG life then?
It was that and the West End Games Star Wars D6, which still holds a special place in my heart.
So the Star Wars came second after or came after Rollmaster. And how has your involvement with TTRPGs changed over time? Have you been kind of consistent or have there been like freezes and coming back to it?
After those high school games, I didn't pick up the screen again for almost 10 years. And it was the launch of fourth edition D&D and the Penny Arcade crew being into it that got me back in.
And
And
you've been
now,
pretty consistent running games since 4E.
yes, with maybe at most like a 1.5 to 2 year break. But since probably 2017, I have been consistently running between 1 and 5 ongoing games.
Okay. Just a light load of work.
If we could fit more days into the week, I'd run more games.
I would almost be happy to have some lousy Smarch weather at this point just to get an extra month. Um, so what kind of, as someone who is a forever DM, What kind of stories, characters, or settings have you gravitated towards? And has that shifted as you've gotten more experience in running games?
Well, I mean, there's the franchises I love and the ones that were allowed to me in my youth. So, Warhammer is one I'm looking forward to getting into. I'm trying to think, other than Star Wars and the Middle Earth, uh, I played in fifth edition D&D. I ran fourth edition D&D with my own setting just because I wanted to try that for the first time, and listening to Chris Perkins and Jerry and Mike from Penny Arcade play was like getting me fired up. And at that time, I started absorbing all the blogs and everything on the internet, an early YouTube thing and actual
Were there
plays.
any blogs whose names you remember from that era that stuck out?
Oh man, I believe Angry DM.
Okay.
There was, oh man, there's so many. There's some stuff that was lost to the ages on like the Wizards of the Coast forums that are no more.
Yeah.
Just people that there's one guy that was posting his long story of a zombie survival game in a fantasy setting using the fourth edition rules. And I wanted to emulate that so bad. But then every time I tried to actually track, how many arrows or how much food the party had, I was like, I actually hate this. So thankfully I never made that mistake. But those kind of influences were everywhere. And I read so many of them, that it's all a blur now. But that just kept getting fed. So if I think long enough, usually something pops into my brain that has been absorbed over those years.
Do you so I know you're a big fan of a lot of YouTube creators and to a lesser extent podcasts such as this one. Um, do you read any of the blogs that from coming out of the OSR wing of the hobby?
I don't know if I do specifically. I read one-off articles as they show up in my inbox from the various mailing lists. There's a few people that kind of collate and put out, here's the cool articles from this week. And so I'll skim the titles, open a bunch of tabs, and then skim or occasionally even read in detail a few, but nothing I can name check easily without going back through my browsing history or my saved bookmarks, which of course I'll revisit someday, maybe.
Well, that's okay. I mean, just curious to see like if there's any that really stuck out as being early inspirations. Angry DM is in there. Probably a memorable name for that one.
Yeah, I've fallen off that one, but there are some good ideas. I love the Monsters Know guy whose name I forget. Uh,
Keith Amon.
that's, I believe that's it. Yes, he. When I was trying to make my fifth edition, encounters more interesting, you can find all the original Monster Manual monsters, I believe, on his website or his book, and like he really breaks down effectively like what this monster must be good at based on its stats and its abilities and what it should do and what it shouldn't do, which I usually don't have much brain space for by the time, I'm running the adventure and everything. If I have a few key points I've taken from one of those articles, I can refresh myself as the combat takes off.
Cool. Um, yeah, I found with using that book, you can really create some memorable encounters, and that's what I'd like to ask you. Is there a moment of, I mean, you've got decades now of gaming experience. Is there like a big moment from running or playing a game that's really stayed with you, like stood the test of time?
Oh, I'm sure. That West End Games Star Wars arena in high school, I had a player that had to drop out, and he was the only force sensitive in the party. And later, just because I could and I didn't know better, I put the players onto, a asteroid base that Darth Vader used for solitude, and they met the man himself. And their old ally was there, being, steadily corrupted towards the dark side. And he was able to sacrifice himself, since the player presumably wasn't coming back, because he had hidden a single charge ion blast in the base of his lightsaber he'd been forced to construct. And he was able to slow Vader just long enough for his old friends to make it to their ship.
That's amazing. Was that would you say for you and or the players, was that particular um situation, was it emotional?
Uh, I don't remember well enough, but it must have been on some level for me at least. I was certainly excited. I don't know if you get this, but when you're imagining what could happen in the next session, you might have the idea of a cool scene or even just a cool image of something. And like, if it works out, I would love for that to manifest in some variation. And then when it does, it can be super exciting. I actually had two in last night's 1000 Generations game, but we're still working through the history. So I don't want
Okay.
to segue us too hard.
Well, no, I mean, if that's a moment that was that a moment that felt emotional or transformative? Because that was going to be where I was going to go. Have you ever had an emotional or transformative moment in a game?
I don't know. I'd have to really think on that. I think I've had fun moments, moments that stuck with me. I've, with my players, had them have emotional moments. I'm usually, again, all the plates are spinning, all the wheels are running in my head, and I'm trying to, read everybody's vibe. And I don't know. I've definitely been there, party to, and enabling my friends to have some pretty, like, we've had tears when characters in the 5-year D&D game passed or made great sacrifices. So yeah, I have a certain level of detachment. I feel like as the DM, like I'm there, I'm feeling it, but I'm invested in my friends' enjoyment, and to me, everything serves that. So for me to uh, yeah, I don't know. Hope that doesn't sound too emotionally distant, but
No, I mean, I guess, are you familiar with any of the discourse about playing for bleed?
oh, how game emotions can bleed over into real life,
Yeah.
like players being upset with
Or
each other
feel what their
afterwards.
characters feel, or
Hmm. Yeah, I
yeah,
think
I've
that.
never had that. I do.
Yeah. We come from an old school where you're just mad that your friends didn't let you do the cool thing you wanted to do. I think more often than upset that someone someone's fictional argument, although I suppose that's part of it. Like if your characters argue in the game, there's definitely potential that it carries over. I've had, when I was running Rollmaster for my high school era, set in Middle Earth, we had an older friend of ours that had joined in, and he was being, I would say, emotionally abusive to another player character, and therefore kind of the player. And that bothered me a lot. I got bullied a lot, up to that point, and didn't like to see other people get bullied. So once I started running games as an adult, I had a hard rule. I'm like, we're all fans of each other and each other's characters, and I will not allow you to demean another player, obviously, but also not their character. We want each other's characters to do and look cool. And that doesn't mean that your characters can't get along or can't insult each other in game, but you do have to be pretty sure that the other player's into it.
Do you think that situation gave you some tools to navigate later tense situations at the table?
I think all my high school experience was specifically to know what not to do and what to discourage. There's one thing I learned from growing up, it's what not to do.
Okay. Well, as you've been playing for a while, you've probably been a member of more than one gaming communities. So I guess what kinds of gaming communities have you been a part of?
I online communities, I don't get. I'm a lurker, right? Uh,
Hmm.
I'm there to absorb and glean and check in occasionally. And then as far as real life, I got my paintball team of the time back into uh, RPGs with me when fourth edition came out. And when that first party, we lost some players. I wanted to be a player. Suffering from always being the DM situation. So I joined in the D&D Encounters program that Wizards of the Coast did. And that's how we met one of our good friends, because he was running the Dark Sun campaign when the books launched for fourth ed. And so he ended up hosting a game at his house. We played in that. He joined that paintball team. He played WoW with us. That's David, and him and my friend Will are Absurdist Productions that they're publishing 1000 Generations and various board games. So, but again, we were there to play D&D with strangers, and then we met someone and immediately left the public situation. So we weren't necessarily involved in that community for a long time. But people I've met since I got back into it, we've bonded over things like D&D and RPGs and Warhammer, et cetera. And so I think of those people, and met you at Little Shop of Games I
Hmm.
was hanging out there regularly for a couple of years. So between you and Sam and other people there, lots of conversations and, learning about new games that way.
Would you say that your identity, culture, gender, or personal has shaped your experience of the gaming space?
I don't see how it couldn't.
Yeah.
I'm in the forest amongst the trees, so it's not always obvious to me. But when I started the fifth edition campaign for my friends at the tea house where I was a regular, they were all younger than me and mostly not white males. And so that was good for me to just like get some new perspectives, because I love my core gaming group, but we're all of an age and share so much, too much cultural overlap to where like, love them, love talking about all the stuff we love, but like, tell me about that new anime that I'm too old to know about, like
Hmm.
tell me about this sweet new video game that's outside of my normal preferences. I love that. That's how I got introduced to the Adventure Zone and the McElroys, and the way they ran their game with their dad was an inspiration on how to have fun and have emotional moments.
When you become a member, I mean, I know like maybe we don't necessarily go seek out and be like, I'm going to join a gaming community. But were you surprised to find yourself growing as a person because of your like membership in a gaming community?
Always shocked to find myself growing at all. I felt like,
Okay.
I didn't do much of that for way too long. So really trying to speed run these last 15 years of personal growth. But yeah, being exposed to those people in particular, but all the friends that I choose to game with now are people who I admire and have attributes that I think are, worth emulating, and getting them to hang out and to be creative. I think it's an excellent way to learn about people and to learn from people. Also, the discipline for someone who talks too much and doesn't always listen well to have to sit there as the game mother and listen to people and validate what they say has helped me transfer that to real life, where in the past, being poorly socialized, I might talk over someone or might not consider their opinion as strongly as my own because it's my opinion. It must be the most important one in the world, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, lots of exciting growth opportunities, I would say.
Have you ever felt particularly excluded at a table?
Oh, hmm. Those high school one-off D&D games where if I had known, I would have picked a wizard so I could do something, even if it was ineffectual, ultimately, as opposed to rolling one die. I don't know. Again, I'm usually the one running the game, so it scratches my deep-seated need for attention, but also the sense of obligation I feel to entertain people, to make
Right.
my company worth bearing, which I understand is not a healthy way to look at it. But sometimes your feelings don't accurately reflect society. But in those situations, I get as much attention as I need, and also in obligated to make sure everybody else gets their moment to shine too.
Okay. Cool. I'm going to move on to talk a little bit about TTRPGs and the broader culture, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Um, how have you seen the gaming hobby reflect or respond to broader cultural shifts?
Oh wow, yeah. Uh, it has been a journey from the Oriental adventure days of the '90s, and I know we've had conversations about things like bioessentialism, and people get, you know, they get their feels in it, especially if it's your hobby or interest of focus. But again, it's exciting learning opportunities. I have, as I've gotten hopefully a little bit more wise and open to other people's ideas, uh, sought out the opinions of different people, just like my newer gaming groups are people outside of my traditional cohort, which I find awesome. Shows like Asians Represent, they started off doing deep dives into Shaolong and the Asian inspired settings of D&D. And even on that show, they've had growth, because when you listen to their later stuff, they are critical of the way they received it. And they were in their fields reading it for the first time, live reacting, and people responded to that and they went back and forth. But they're able to recognize that the people that wrote those books weren't trying to be harmful. Now, were they perpetuating stereotypes, which are kind of inherently harmful? Yeah. But then they've been like, we could have been a little more this or a little more that. So watching them, first of all, like react honestly to something, and then teach me about, other people's perspective on things that were normal to us in the 90s, and then go on to not only do that, but then to reflect on their own reactions and to become more professional, more nuanced, and more balanced in their takes, which weren't atrocious by any means. It's just, they were sometimes in their fields, they were speaking strongly here and there. But I found shows like that to be growth. Happy Jack's RPG podcast I got into back when I started my 4th edition game, and they've grown a ton. Their hosts have gotten more varied, and they've kind of passed the torch in some ways and just made a point to platform people that are maybe different from them sometimes, which I find exciting and new.
So their original hosts on Happy Jacks were basically like the guys they were guys who played like at Ren fairs, like had a band that played at Ren fairs, and were kind of, I imagine, when you walk by that group of guys playing at a Ren fair.
Right.
Exactly who you think you're
they
seeing.
Were not bad guys, but there was some things that they've owned up to and set in the past,
Yeah, I remember they early on when I was listening to them, they did a lot of actual plays of L5R.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, Agents Represent has some fun stuff to say about L5R. And it's not all bad, actually. So that's cool.
Cool. Well, I guess
especially the newer stuff.
The next logical question is, how do you feel about the use of katanas in role-playing games?
Oh, man. I just had someone helping me learn the Rollmaster rules better, roll up a Goblin Samurai. And so, of course, we reflavored a longsword as a katana, which I feel like in some of the older editions, they had every single weapon you can imagine. But this newer version, not quite as in-depth. Very disappointing.
It's probably, being a game of that era, if there is a katana in it, it's going to be better. So have you noticed, okay, I know you have. What changes have you noticed in who plays, how games are played, and what stories are told?
Yeah, that's a good question. Some of my answer would be that I didn't know who all was playing games in what sense growing up. It was really hard to find examples of other people playing, not like now where you can fire up Twitch or YouTube. And so just because I was playing with the dorkiest, most socially awkward boys in high school doesn't mean that other people weren't having different experiences. And I've heard people talk about them. But now it's much more welcoming to women and other people that want to join in. They won't, there's still exciting opportunities for awkward encounters, I'm sure. I'm sure you and I have both witnessed some in the last few years, but overall,
met at a game store I was working at. Yeah.
I love hobbies that attract socially awkward people, having been one myself and still sometimes being one. But yeah, I don't know. I personally love, again, having different new perspectives, and that means different new people at the table. So the shows I watch and the podcasts I listen to also are having point of views and people from backgrounds that I wasn't directly exposed to growing up. And I think it's a great evolution, and if there's pushback to it, I hope that's just the dying gasp of people that don't like change. It doesn't have to be a personal attack, Yeah.
Okay. Well, as we kind of head out towards the back end of the episode and the end of our conversation for tonight, what role would you say that tabletop role-playing games have played in your life overall?
Obviously a source of entertainment, a way for me to make friends and connect to other people, a way for me to finally fulfill my straight middle-aged male dreams of being a podcast host part-time. I am an electrician by trade, and not my dream job. Don't hate it, but don't love it. Right. I would prefer to do something creative for a living. And with the inability to focus on long-term projects, something like role-playing games is a great creative outlet, because rather than having to, write edit, produce a published book or adventure or whatever, I can speak my ideas into existence, into my friends' ear holes, and then it manifests in their imagination at whatever resolution. I guess some people might have aphantasia, so it probably varies. But it's just a fun way. I mean, obviously, I take notes because my recall is not perfect, so that that counts for some sort of work. But compared to what it takes to actually produce finished creative products, it's an exciting, fun, and easy way, accessible way to be creative on the regular, and always in the back of my head processing ideas and taking notes on games I want to run or things I want to put in my game. It's just a fun way to get through the day.
Cool. What have RPGs taught you about collaboration?
Oh man, it's good to not talk all the time and to listen.
Mm.
My ideas aren't the best ones. And, I go back to something I think about a lot is when I'm prepping for a game, I find something that makes me excited and I present it to my friends like a shiny toy and I let them play with it and see what they do. I'm just happy they're playing with something I thought was cool. And they usually do something surprising and exciting with it. If I, was scripting it out, I couldn't really be surprised, certainly not on that level. So the novelty of it just really does good things for my brain every time that my players are having fun with my ideas.
Awesome. If someone were to tell the story of your gaming life, what would you want them to understand above all else?
Oh man. The rules are just there as guidelines to help you have fun. It's about the people at the table and their intermixing of ideas. So I had to outgrow my rules lawyer phase and learn that playing the game perfectly to the rules is not what makes it fun. In fact, strict adherence to them typically makes it less fun.
I love that you said that because I see that in the way that you run games. And I also like we are doing that principle in Rollmaster, which which is a heck of a feat. And I guess my last question for you is what advice or thoughts would you share with someone who's just discovering tabletop role playing games?
Oh man, if you're not having fun, keep branching out and meeting new people because the group is everything. That said, if you're having trouble finding a game, just try and run one. It looks intimidating, but it's fun and easy. Other than the being intimidating part is, I understand, a huge hurdle.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chris, and thanks for sharing your time with us. This has been Jesse with the Jaunty Mantis. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know about it. If you could leave us a review on wherever your podcast is located, that helps us out. Say hi in the YouTube comments down below. And if you're interested in telling your own story of tabletop role-playing games, email us or respond in the YouTube comments. Until then, get out there and reflect on the role of the tabletop role-playing game hobby in your life and its connection to the broader culture or some shit. Mantis out.